and we've only got like 20 minutes. Crap. Okay, let's start with birds. How many birds could there possibly... Oh no. This one first, why not? The Seychelles warbler evolved around... Wait, hold on. Cooperative behavior? Some birds altruistically cooperate? But that would imply... Life on Earth probably began with some soup at least 3.5 billion years ago. Not this soup, spicy hydrothermal soup, made with nitrogen, phosphorus, and love. It's really good, you could taste it. You probably shouldn't taste it, but someone is tasting it. We'll call them Jeremy. Oh, can't see them? That's because they're really small and kind of basic, so much so we can probably leave for a bit without missing any. Whoa, slow down! Now there are Jeremys everywhere, trying different configurations thanks to a weird spiral cheat code, and some of them are wondering if the sun is tasty, and some of them are wondering if they can link together, and oh wow, this is gonna get out of hand quick. Cool, is it fish time now? Not even close, bucko. First it's time for the boring billion. Scientists never call anything boring, so we can probably skip this one. Next is the Cambrian... Sorry, hold on. Okay, cooperative altruism has been documented in some bird species. Barn owl chicks give food to hungry siblings, Seychelles warblers co-parent. Though it's not conclusive, it honestly seems like a lot of animals show behavior one could classify as kindness. But if it's emerged convergently in so many species, does that mean kindness is only a survival strata? Next is the Cambrian period. The Jeremys have been busy, linking together into remarkable multicellular— oh god, what is that? An increase in oxygen has led to an explosion of new body plans, and in their excitement, everyone's gotten a little weird with it. Predators are now in vogue, so most species need a method of self-defense, like being fast, wiggly, or a slow and unpalatable mouthful of shell. Hey, this is a great idea, say their cousins, the horseshoe crabs. Let's just do this forever and not change. And they mean it, because looking ahead 400 million years, while whales will only need half an epoch to turn from weird rat things into living submarines, horseshoe crabs will have still barely shifted a centimeter, making every time the two hang out rather awkward. Hey, so do you want to evolve sometime later, or... Not really. But the wildest thing about the Cambrian is... Okay, wait a minute. If kindness is just a survival strategy, a product of natural selection, doesn't that suggest we only perform good deeds because we benefit, like by passing on our genes or having a favor returned? Well, maybe. The idea that the principles underlying Darwinian evolution can be widely applied to things like ethics and culture as well is called universal Darwinism, which isn't named after Charles Darwin, but his cousin, Leonard Darwin. That was a lie. I just broke our trust, and it didn't feel good because thousands of years of cultural evolution has made lying into a socially unacceptable taboo. See, societies evolve just like organisms, adapting alongside things like technology, clothing, language, dance, and humor in response to selective pressures. So keep an open mind because this next part is where things really— Alright, enough about the Cambrian already, I hear you say. I'm tired of Anomalocaris. Are there fish yet? Well, first of all, how dare you? Second of all, yeah, there are fish, but they look... Okay, listen, flash forward a solid 100 million years, now fishier fish are hanging out in the shallows, which turns out to be a gateway drug for walking on land. Not like that, more like this. And now you've got the first terrestrial vertebrates. Oh, right on, so it's dinosaur time now. No, hold your proto-mammalian horses, these things take time. Natural selection isn't just some video game where— Welcome back to my gaming channel, today we're looking at the new game Evolution. Bruh. It's been in development for 3.5 billion years. Bruh. Okay, fine. So if there aren't dinosaurs yet, what sorts of animals do we have? Well, since we're now entering the Permian, we've reached the age of synapsids, a group that includes the iconic Dimetrodons, the rather rotund Codolorhynchus, who were perfect. And there's also a few weird hairy things scurrying around, but they probably won't amount to much. Wait, hold on. There are currently 8.2 billion humans on this planet, yet according to universal Darwinism, there might be 100 times as many memes, influencing our social evolution and even our sense of ethics. A meme, in this case, is a unit of cultural information capable of self-replicating, as proposed in the book The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. The term encompasses any idea transferable between humans, from Beethoven's Ninth to the Mac and Cheeto, and therefore all of societal progress can theoretically be broken down into its memes. For example, there used to be mullets. Now, there is no mullets. You probably aren't wearing a toga while watching this. I mean, you might be, I guess, I don't know your life, but did you journal on your clay tablet this morning using your reed stylus about the consistency of copper your merchant gave you? If the answer is no, then congratulations, you don't live in ancient Babylonia, because like biological genes, meme variation allowed culture to evolve. But this theory gets stranger. Dawkins argues groups of memes working together are what facilitate more complex human ideas, like languages or traditions, which he claims are functionally mind viruses spreading contagiously from person to person. And if you're thinking, hold on, isn't this getting a bit too out there? The ride's just getting started, because you can't talk about the evolution of absolutely everything without talking about, why don't you want to change? I don't know. I already like myself. Sure, but is there something about me you don't like? Of course not. That's not what because just because I never went through a phase where I was a furry rat horse doesn't mean that, I know. I'm sorry. You wouldn't understand. One Permian mass extinction later, and it's the early Triassic. Most species seem to have gotten the memo that it's time to stop being so goofy. Most species. And for the next few 100 million years, dinos are gonna lock in and fill just about every niche. Being tall, being small, eating leaves, having ball. Wow, these things were worth the wait. I don't see anything ever messing this up, so I'm gonna go buy milk. Can you look after the dinos while I'm gone? Okay, thanks. What did you do? Well, this is a problem. Who's gonna rule the planet now? These anxious rodent things? I don't even want to imagine what kind of society they would. The average human home contains at least one parasite. Penicillus parasitus, or the pencil, is a species that uses its capacity to create markings to lure in unsuspecting hosts, encouraging them to facilitate its continued survival and reproduction. This is a theoretically valid way to define pencils under Dawkins' self-replicating meme theory, but it obviously sounds weird, right? Perhaps unsurprisingly, the evolution of memes as Dawkins describes it is a somewhat controversial idea, even called a meaningless metaphor that assigns undue agency to the inanimate. And I agree that saying all cultural change can be mapped to such units is a bit of a stretch. However, and this is a very, very big however, I don't agree that meme theory is completely meaningless, especially if thought of as metaphor, because everything in our modern lives is in the flux of constant viral change. Pencils aren't parasites, they're just pencils, but how easy it is to personify them or any other human creation as alive speaks to the extent to which our culture is relentlessly evolving. Even this channel has transformed radically, and though I'm happy with its path, I can't help but wonder how time might eventually alter. Welcome back, Gamer Nation, to episode 800,002 of my Evolution Let's Play. If it feels like the years are slipping through your fingers like loose sand, remember at the end of this video there's a t-shirt giveaway. As the sun sets on the dinosaurs' reign, it's now the Cenozoic, and though life was in a bit of a pickle there for a second, the mammals are kicking it off with some pretty cool newcomers. We've got these fellows, oh, mammoths are here too now, it's good, got some giant sloths for good measure. Okay, yeah, this is working out, and now half of them are extinct. What happened? Well, some apes with no pointy claws realize they can make pointy sticks instead, and stick those sticks in other animals and cook those animals to unlock the extra nutrition bonus, which means their brains can get fancier and they can cooperate better, and now they've taken a mass extinction size bite out of the food chain. But that's okay, because they're also doing art and culture and memes, although they're not very good yet, and even meeting other hominids who are possibly just as intelligent. Don't worry, humans definitely aren't gonna cook and eat them too. Mostly. I feel really good about this being the species that's spread everywhere. I wonder if their insatiable hunger and general restlessness will lead to any. The only acceptable growth is infinite growth. That's arguably the prevailing ethos of the 20th and 21st century, the most viral Dawkinsian meme of our era, if you will. This drive for exponential profit margins has led to all sorts of lovely phenomena, like enshittification, a charming word for the widespread degradation of products that began as a term for the decline of online platforms but could now apply to nearly all aspects of our daily lives. A rather cartoonish example of this sort of de-evolution is shrinkflation. wherein companies shave off more and more of their product to try and squeeze just a bit more out of consumers and keep those numbers going up forever. This short-sighted idea of progress isn't new. The decline of silver coins minted in the Roman Empire follows a strikingly similar pattern, but taking that as an example, the practice obviously isn't sustainable long-term. And not to get up on my soapbox, but these small cruelties are particularly maddening when thought about in the context of the totality of Earth's history. Billions of years of crawling out of the muck, surviving mass extinction after mass extinction, all for some jerk-offs to not let you have a full-size bag of chips. Is this truly the finale of biological and social evolution, the culmination of the long arc of life? You'd hope there'd be just the teeniest bit more room for compassion, or at the very least, I'd like to understand. Forget it. No, I didn't mean to be rude before. I can tell you're going through something. I guess I'm just afraid. Afraid of what? Of how much the world has changed. Of how much I've changed with it. I've gone through so many iterations, it's like I barely recognize myself. But you've stayed so steady, eon after eon. I wish I had that kind of confidence. Sometimes I wonder if I'm still me anymore. That's crazy. Wow, thanks a lot. Alright, we've still got to wrap up the Anthropocene and beyond, so we don't have time for fancy editing. There we go. Let's see, the Ice Age finally backs off, and anatomically modern humans start spawn camping in various river valleys. They do some farming and build some houses and do some war crimes. They have some collabs with other animals like horses, which they sometimes use for plowing fields, but mainly for war crimes. Every now and then they make some murals or fun bowls, but mostly they make murals of them doing war crimes. And that's basically history in a nutshell. There were some neat ideas, like doing really tall pillars or really big heads on top of really tall pillars, but most ideas should have been left in the drafts. I do appreciate how food like the dumpling is a cultural universal, and food like kasumarzu isn't. That one is squarely on Sardinia, but none of these is enough to tip the scales in humanity's favor. So the final score for humans is spread consistently throughout the long arc of cultural evolution, across societies and time periods, are depictions of dogs made not for any practical reason, but out of genuine affection. Ancient Romans often carved poems on their dogs' graves, with one reading, "I am in tears while carrying you to your resting place, as much as I rejoiced when bringing you home 15 years ago." And that's odd, because if altruism is merely a tactic to ensure our survival, what advantage is there for mourning a completely unrelated species? I mean, sure, dogs have helped us out in various ways, but humanity has been making reverential art of wild animals since our earliest drawings, showcasing appreciation and empathy for species that could have easily killed us. And is that only a survival strategy? We also have a tendency to care for the sick and elderly, and have done so for a really, really long time. And is that only a survival strategy? In a language probably lost forever, some ancient human somewhere must have been the first to say, "I love you," to someone else. And is that only a survival? Well, perhaps they were motivated by chemical signals to pass on their genes. Alright, sure, but I'm not entirely certain that matters, because regardless of how or why we gain the capacity to care, we almost certainly can. So really, is it significant that altruism might on some level be a survival tactic that other animals exhibit? In the midst of all this swirling chaos, we can be reasonably sure that our species is a manifestation of life capable of compassion towards what surrounds us. So shouldn't we at least try to? After the Anthropocene comes of course the Automocene epoch, where depleted resources cause global civilization to break down. Nuclear winter from the techno-skirmishes of the 2020 60s and 70s at last blot out the sun, causing crops to fail, and the Great Fading to begin in earnest. The remnants of humankind famously take refuge beneath Mammoth Cave National Park and accidentally uncover the great deep world below. Then comes the Malimcene, wherein the dwellers of old reclaim the scarred surface, and humanity becomes naught but their puppets for several million generations. Then the Cthulhucene happens, which is pretty self-explanatory, honestly, but once the final grand necromancer of the outer gods is at last overthrown, with the help of the cephalopod people and their understanding of community engagement, civilization can at last be reborn. The Symbiocene ushers in a new era of positivity, with culture at last rallying around a doctrine of harmony and fairness for all, reaching the heights humanity always had the potential to achieve, but maybe that's what's most frustrating. The fact that humans do have the potential for altruism and compassion, perhaps more so than anything else in the history of Earth, or even anything else in the history of the cosmos, and yet we also have a unique power to consciously not act on it. Hey now, don't disembowel those innocent civilians is not a reasonable thing to ask a tiger, and yet it is a more than reasonable thing to ask a person. A lion might eat your kidneys, but they wouldn't deny your kidneys life-saving treatment. Lions would never. Human unkindness in all its forms is unique because most of us, very literally, know better. And as we speculate on the future of absolutely everything, I'd say some of us are pretty keen on keeping things from going to crap, and some of us are pretty keen on squeezing one more penny out of people just before Armageddon. One thing I've perhaps glossed over is that evolution is not a mechanism of linear improvement. To evolve is to change more than progress, and nature's experiments fail all the time. So the question is, how is our chapter of life's story going to end? Will we be able to look back and say these billions of years of struggle have been worth it, or will it all fade into meaningless,
the amazing new Toilet Time golf game?
Now you can have the same exact haircut time after time.
Welcome back to episode 8.2 billion. If my lighting looks weird, that's because the sun has decayed into a red dwarf and will soon be extinguished like an ephemeral candle in the infinite dark, so be sure to smash that like button. The Seychelles warbler is a greenish-brown bird that stands between 13 and 14 centimeters. It has a pale supercilium in front of its eye and primarily inhabits shrubland. But I think my favorite thing about the Seychelles warbler has to be its call. It's this melodious little whistling sound, and what I love most about it is how it's a reminder that my ears, which are completely different from a bird's, can hear their calls and think, wow, that's beautiful. I wonder sometimes if other animals can appreciate bird songs. It's not entirely far-fetched. After all, there's evidence bears enjoy nature views, as they've been observed returning to particularly scenic vistas much like humans might, just sitting and watching creation for no apparent reason other than it looks pleasant. And who knows, maybe other overlooked species are capable of finding beauty too. It's almost impossible to prove, but I'd like to think so because, look, what I meant to say was, it's crazy you're afraid you're not still you. What? Of course you're still you. So what if you've evolved? So what if you've changed? There's always change. Uncertainty is the single constant of the universe. And look, I'm not sure where any of this is going. In 400 million more years, maybe I will finally have to switch things up. Or maybe I'll be extinct. I don't know. But what I do know is that as long as I have the privilege of being, I'm going to enjoy every moment of it. And you should too. Because no matter what happens, you'll always be yourself. And yourself is someone who means the world to me, and always has. So there. I thank you for saying so. I love you. I love you too. Our ever-evolving world could be charitably called dynamic, and more aptly called chaotic. The UN just failed to pass a plastic pollution treaty, again, and over 280 news sources covered the story. Thankfully, today's sponsor Ground News helped me parse through all this information. Ground News is a website and app designed to help you sort through the chaos of modern media, offering a quick visual breakdown of the political biases, factuality, and ownership of the news sources reporting on an event, all backed by ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. For this story on an oil spill in southern Russia, this many news outlets can be overwhelming, but Ground News breaks it down with ease. Over half are from left-leaning outlets. You can even see the factuality and ownership charts if you want more information. They also make it easy to compare headlines and see potential biases on an individual level. You even read each of the articles all without ever leaving the app. I particularly like Ground News' blind spot feed, which highlights stories that are disproportionately covered by either side of the political spectrum, since it's important to consider what stories are being circulated beyond our own algorithmic bubbles that the internet has a tendency to sequester us in. In the fast-moving and distorted media landscape of our modern era, Ground News enables us to better filter misinformation and think more critically about how the headlines we read are presented. Right now, you can go to ground.news/curiousarchive to get 40% off their Vantage subscription, which includes the My News Bias feature, letting you track the news sources you tend to favor based on the articles you read. Ground News truly is a fantastic tool for staying informed and battling inaccuracies, so follow the link on screen or in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this entry, please lend your support by liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification icon to stay up to date on all things curious. See you in the next video.